the end of the day, selling is transferring a feeling. If you don't have the feeling, you can't transfer it. If you don't have a good, positive feeling, dude, you're an actor. You have to sell and run your business from a place of positivity. And however you get there, God bless you. Welcome to the Primeau Show. It is episode 90, and we are with Stu Heinecke, the author of How to Grow Your Business Like a Weed. And it is a complete strategy for unstoppable growth. Let me do some commercials, and then we will get right into it. I'm going to pay the bills. If you haven't gotten my book, Sell a Million, what are you waiting for? 101 tips, strategies, and tactics on how to sell another million. If you haven't joined my dear friends at the Mattress Industry Network group, it is a free Facebook group that if you're in the mattress industry, you have to belong to. I want to thank Steve and the entire gang for the sponsorship of the Pete Primeau Show by Mattress Industry Network. If you own a mattress store or a furniture store, or you sell mattresses, or if you're just in the mattress industry, we want you in this group. This is the only group that I know that is run by retailers for the entire industry. If you want to learn how to sell mattresses, how to advertise mattresses, how to merchandise mattresses, the best practices of any mattress retailer would be found right here in the Mattress Industry Network group. Use that QR code, scan it now, and tell them Pete Primeau sent you. So thank you, Mattress Industry Network group. You are doing great things for our industry. Over 1,600 strong. Let's hurry up and get to over 2,000 soon. And without a further ado, let's introduce my guest.
I can't wait to hear what they
Magic.
it's stuff that's not in the books. It's just, that's crazy. We'll probably talk about weeds a little bit.
Yes.
But this whole show is about how do you get meetings? How do you break through? And how do you convince people to go further in the conversation? You've got to do something special, and that's what this session is going to be about. Doing that thing that allows you to break through to the people who can change the scale of everything in your business or in your career. What I want to do is think about who's here. It's all these sales professionals, outbound sales professionals. You know they have great ideas and great things that they're using to break through. And I'll bet you there's a whole new book worth of new ideas that are just sitting right here, out here in those seats. And that's what we're going to explore.
So whether you own a mattress store, you sell mattresses, or you're a sales rep, if you're a sales rep, get his book on how to get a meeting with anyone. And before we even get started, how to grow your business like a weed, a complete strategy for unstoppable growth. Stu, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here live.
I'm so glad to join you. I'm so glad my camera works.
Yeah, we finally got it to work. So I've been dying to ask you this question. I listened to the book on my drive home from Atlanta. I listened to it again. I loved it so much that I bought it. And what was the inspiration? It kept going through my mind because guys and gals out there, each chapter starts with a little story and a picture about a weed and a little bit of information about it, and then how that translates to something in your business, very specific strategies and tactics. What was your inspiration?
Well, you know, it's interesting you asked the question about, because you were driving down the freeway, and I don't know if they're called freeways in Atlanta, but anyway, the highway, and I'm sure you spotted what I did. So many years ago, when I was driving the Santa Monica Freeway in Los Angeles, I was driving down the road, down the freeway, 6 lanes of traffic going one way, 6 coming the other way, and in the middle, there's a 40-foot wide concrete median, and there was a crack. Well, there's lots of cracks, and that's what concrete does. And there was a dandelion growing out of the crack in the concrete median. And as I whizzed by, I was thinking, Well, first of all, Pete, the thing is, we see those things all the time, and it does, it doesn't even faze us. We drive right by. We don't even notice it. But this time I noticed it, and I thought, man, look at that little thing growing from the crack. And like, that's what a sort of like what an unfortunate place to land and start. But it didn't care. It was just running its process, and it looked happy running, with those yellow flowers and those happy seed pods, and they're blowing seeds around, and it was just there running its process. It didn't care that it landed in the middle of the freeway, and that's where it was set up to make a living. It was going to make the most of it. And you could think, like, how did it get there? You could wonder. And then on the other hand, we know exactly how it got there. We see what dandelions, we've seen it our whole lives, that dandelions pop those seeds out, and they fly around and they probe every possible opportunity to take root, which is probably a pretty good analogy or description of what entrepreneurs should be. We should be weeds. We should be very weed-like. And so I wondered, as I was driving down the freeway and I noticed all that, I was just wondering, well, what is it about weeds that causes them to do that? Because, there were no apple trees growing from the cracks in the concrete, or oak, or I don't know, petunias or anything like that. Because you know what? They couldn't make it as a weed. There's something very special about weeds. And I wanted to find out, well, what is that? And do they have a unified model? And if they do, can we apply it to our businesses? And in fact, they do have a unified model. And I think it's not only applicable to businesses, but probably growing anything.
One of my favorite parts of the book, and it's not a one hit. You remind us again and again and again throughout the book, and that is weeds seek out unfair advantages.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah. I mean, I just was mentioning that they have this unified model, this thing that they all do. And so here's what it is. They all leverage a fierce mindset and unfair advantages against collective scale. And they do it according to a process that is, well, it's millions of years old. They showed up on Earth probably 140 million years ago. So it's well honed, but on the other hand, it's a living process that is allowed or is able to respond or activate. It responds to stimuli or challenges, and it evolves right around them. And so there's some great stories of how they do that, but that's what they're doing. So you asked about unfair advantages. Oh man, we all need unfair advantages in business, or we have no business being in business. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so there are all kinds of things that can be unfair advantages. And the point is, as business owners, we need to cultivate a bunch of them. So does that, I don't know if it makes sense or not. Maybe should I explain maybe what kind of unfair advantages are we talking about?
Absolutely.
Well, I would think that one, because your audience is in the retail mattress business, I think I got that right. So,
hey, Guy, how are you? Thanks for being here, Guy.
So I would say that one has got to be locations can be unfair advantages, right? I mean, that's everything in retail is to get the right locations, the right foot traffic, or just you want to be in the right spot. But there are many others, and I think one source of unfair advantages is just the kinds of unfair advantages that you can bring to your customers or clients. I don't know if that. I mean, that usually is said in a B2B setting, but and businesses don't buy. Well, I guess they do. Hotels buy them. There are businesses that buy a lot of mattresses, but by and large, I think this is probably a retail sell, and so probably the unfair advantages would be perhaps the mattresses that you're selling and what they do for the clients. But in business to business, that could be all kinds of things. I run an agency, and we help we help sales teams break through to their clients. So if I'm able to give them the ability to break through to virtually anyone, that's a big unfair advantage. And so that gives me an unfair advantage because I'm able to do that uniquely. So there are a lot of different forms of unfair advantages, but the thing that we all ought to be aware of is that we need unfair advantages to be in business and to stick around.
Yep. And knowledge of your competitors That's that is starting to load up into an unfair advantage, because if your competitors aren't shopping you and you're shopping them, it just tilted your way. That knowledge is power, and that can be used to create one of the greatest unfair advantages that any retailer can go for, and that is a superior buying experience, a buying experience that's different than any other retailer in your area. So shop your competition. And I know what you're saying right now, Pete. I've owned this store for 10 or 20 years. Everybody knows me. I can't walk. That's fine. You got a cousin, got a friend, you got somebody that can shop your competitors. Have your competitors shop. Find out what you can do to give your customer a superior customer experience. That becomes an unfair advantage. And usually, the harder it is to duplicate, the more unfair of an advantage it becomes.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, one of the things that that one of the messages that comes through loud and clear from weeds also is they never do anything alone, right? I mean, when you see a dandelion in your lawn, if you thought that if you thought to yourself, oh shoot, I have a dandelion, well, look up, you have lots of them. They don't show up alone. They work as a team, and they collaborate, I guess, in a way. And so for example, when you see a dandelion in your lawn and you think, well, okay, gosh, I got a dandelion. You could just, if it was just one, you just yank it out of the ground, you're done. But when you look up and see that, no, it's dozens, maybe hundreds out there, and each of them is producing 15,000 seeds over their lifetimes, you're not going to get rid of them. I mean, it's really difficult to get rid of them. It's really difficult to, let's say, compete with them for that ground. And so, so one of the things that I think that the weeds really would, if they could talk to us, would advise us to do is to form a lot of collaborations. And I'm curious, Pete, how could maybe the people in your audience form collaborations that would help propel their businesses? I mean, I know how to do it in a B2B setting, but I'm just kind of curious. Does that make sense in a retail setting? It seems like it would.
It absolutely makes sense, and that is, you're alluding to the power of networking, and ultimately the ultimate power would be that of a mastermind. And so the Mattress Industry Network Group is a great example. One of the things that I was thinking about this morning, that hey Steve, there's the money man. Thank you for.
We were wondering when
Steve
was going to get here.
Yeah,
he's here.
Glad you're here, Steve. Yeah. Hop in if you have any questions or anything to add. We always love your input. So, when you look at the Mattress Industry Network Group, what it does for somebody that owns a store that may not be well networked in the mattress industry is it allows him or her to benefit from the years and years of experience of the members that are already in the group, right? So that collaboration with others and that networking with others really shortens the learning curve, and it eliminates many costly mistakes. Something I saw that was fascinating in the Mattress Industry Network, somebody posted a little screenshot, and they said, I'm not sure if this is a scam, but I wanted to see what you guys thought. And bigger than life, it's a scam. And the person that posted it was smart enough to put it up there and let his teammates in the Mattress Industry Network all kind of vote, and everybody scam. They're like, I've seen this. And there are a few others are like, hey, thanks for asking this question, because I got something like this too. And I was afraid to post. And so here you go. You don't have to make that mistake. So one of the things that I really want to dive into, and by the way, anytime you want to talk B2B, feel free to talk B2B, because one of the things that's happened with my podcast is I attract as many reps as I do business owners. So I have this, what I would call a secondary market that's almost like a primary market. So anytime
Yeah.
you want to jump in with anything B2B, I keep thinking about my brother's sales reps, and I just ordered your book, and I'm listening to it on tape right now. How to get a meeting with anyone, and that is unbelievably great. I'm buying that as a book too, in addition to buying it on Audible. But something I wanted to touch on, Stu, me and you had a little bit of correspondence before this, and of course we met in Atlanta, thanks to Chris Stone introducing us. I didn't want this to get away from us because I think it's really important. Everybody has a different take of where we are now as a country and what the economy's doing. Certainly the doors to our retailers are not swinging as frequently as they were, whether we're in a recession, heading towards a bigger recession, heading towards a potential depression, whatever labels you want to put on it. To me, it doesn't even matter. I've been through, I started in business in 1982 when I was still in college. My senior year in college, I started selling furniture at a furniture store in my spare time, which I had very little of. But we were in the middle of a 16 or 18-month recession then. And this will be number 6. And I can tell you that when I go back and I look, I've always been smart enough to figure things out, but not smart enough to dwell on things too much. And this thing that you said to me is huge, and that is fierce mindset. Weeds have a fierce mindset. I think that's going to be so important walking into what we're walking into, and how what resources we bring to bear. And I'm just going to tell everybody right now, anyone listening, if you don't get this book, you own a mattress store or a furniture store, you are absolutely nuts. Or get on Stu's website, how to grow your business like a weed. If we tried desperately, me and Stu, for the next 45 minutes to cover everything in this book, we couldn't cover 10 or 20% of it, and we couldn't do it justice. So we're just giving you some like overviews and highlights, but this is something that you have to do if you own a store. Get in this book, applying the principles, and take it one step further. Get on this website. What is the address for the website?
Well, you see my name down below. There it is. Well, or just go to stuheinecke.com.
Yeah.
That's easy enough to get to. Hey, but Pete, the thing is, we were talking about unfair advantages a moment ago, and a little bit about collaboration. And,
yeah,
I would love to explore this with you further because, for example, I guess I have a lot of competitors, people who also run agencies or services to help sales teams break through to their top accounts. I mean, I do that based on the things that I do with How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. That's my agency business. I'm also an author, and so I've got other authors out there who I guess are competitors, but I don't really see them that way. They're potential collaborators to me. And so, in fact, I'm busy. My following weed strategy right now in my business, I'm really busy setting up a lot of collaborations between myself and a lot of the sales thought leaders and authors out there. And we're talking about doing things like setting up growth summits. So these 10-seat growth summits anywhere in the world. It could be in Dubai or in Key West or Bora Bora, but we'll sit down and we'll brainstorm how to create these unfair advantages, how to create these collaborations that greatly broaden your footprint in the market. But I think sort of the bottom line here, Pete, is that weeds actually thrive during or in most in disrupted ground, if that makes any sense. But our yards are disrupted ground. Farmland is disrupted ground. We're always disrupting the ground, and the weeds are always ready. perfectly evolved to move in quickly and take it over. And so so if we're following weed strategy, I have a feeling that weed strategy will actually help us perhaps thrive during recessions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, one of all of my biggest deals all came from other reps. They were leads.
Wow.
So
look at that.
I help other reps help me. We talk to each other and we support each other, sometimes very specifically with information about accounts. Most of the time, just ideas. Hey, where are we heading? What do you see in the next 6 months, in the next year? And what is your approach for it? Which anyone who knows me knows what my approach is going to be. I'll put my head down and I'm going to go to work and listen, the only thing I watch on TV, and this will make people laugh, I watch UFOs and Bigfoot shows. I don't watch any news. I don't need to poison myself. I don't care. When this is all over and done, I'm going out on my shield selling mattresses. Guy Danes in South Africa, please, ha ha ha, thanks. Guy, how are you? Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a great supporter and a former guest on our show. Appreciate your insight always. And if you have any questions for Stu, Guy, you might just win a book. So, oh, here you go. Look at you.
Oh, excellent. Yes, for sure.
Now I got to try to send another book to you, Guy. I'm going to send it to somebody else and maybe they can get it to you. Maybe Amazon could get it to you. Unfair advantages. Just learn 2 new words, a key to focus with the team in a brainstorming session. Thanks, Stu.
Well, yeah, I got to tell you, it's really interesting when I run roundtables, for example, with business owners, and I ask them, so what are your unfair advantages? They'll say things like, well, we give great service, but man, that's not enough. You need to be able to say things that others can't match. So I don't know, but can I give you an example in my own business? Because it might help. Does that make sense, Pete? Yeah. Well, in the book, I mentioned that I'm going to start the Total Weed Award. And so that's going to be an award to recognize particularly weed-like spread and growth among entrepreneurs and startups and VCs and other sorts of business owners and so on. It's going to be an annual award. And so I promised in the book that I would set it up. And so if you'll notice, the person who wrote the foreword, the contributor of the foreword, is Nicola Corzian, who is the executive director of the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center. That was a coup. I was so lucky to have her words in my book. Well, I reached out to her afterward and I said, Nicola, I promised that I would start this award up, and I'm just wondering, could this become? Would you like the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center to be the home of the award? Could we partner on that? Could we collaborate on this? And she said, wow, yeah, we could, and that would be fantastic. And I said, we can sell sponsorship against it, and all of whatever we sell, just 100% goes to the center. So, I don't need the money from the sponsorship. So let's turn it into a fundraiser for the center. She's saying, you would do that? Yes, I would. Yeah, I would be honored to do this. And so we have this sort of quantum engagement together. We're putting together the Total Weed Awards. It'll be every year. First thing we're doing is we're seeking out media partners. So we're talking about Nasdaq here. So Nasdaq already has partnerships with all the big business media outlets anyways. I don't think this is going to be hard. And so suddenly there will be this annual award every spring, the Total Weed Award, supported by, I don't know who, CNBC or the Wall Street Journal or Inc. or someone like that. And God, so if you think about it, there's a huge unfair advantage here for my book, right? Because the book is the source of everything about the Total Weed Award. That is something that, well, I don't know who's going to match that. How will you match that? Right. So that's a real unfair advantage. Or, in my agency business, I'm also one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists, and I use cartoons to help sales teams break through to top accounts. So I have an image bank of 1,500 cartoons. They're all personalized. Nothing else like it exists in the world. I have test history that goes way back, and extensive test history with the use of cartoons and personalization in marketing, period. And no one can match it. And if you try to circumvent it, you'll just make a lot of the mistakes that we made a long time ago. Or you can work with me, we can just dispense with those mistakes. So those are real unfair advantages. You can't, like, my competitors can't match those. They can come up with something else, but nobody's going to come in and beat me at that game. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So collaboration in and of itself isn't an unfair advantage, but
it is. Yeah, it definitely is.
It becomes an unfair advantage dependent on what the fruit of the collaboration is. And it's this idea, there's a really deep human need to share. And when you do that, when you are open to it, and it feels a little, depending on your background, it feels a little risky and a little daring at times, right? You don't know who to trust, right? We've all been burned, we've all been hurt, yada, yada, yada. But one of the most interesting things, when you look at some of the most successful businesses, there was a point in time where somebody had to collaborate with somebody else, or it never would have survived. The enterprise would not have thrived. It wouldn't have gone forward. They came to a brick wall, and that brick wall became the place where they decided, I've got to look around and I've got to get some collaboration. I've got to get some buy-in from somebody else who has different skill sets than me. Here's one thing I'd like to share with all business owners. Anything that any experience, any skill, anything that can be done for your business that you can job out and not have to do it yourself without breaking the bank, do it. Now, we all start bootstrapping. We all start doing every cotton picking little thing, right? But sooner or later, we have to use leverage, and leverage is an unfair advantage. And leveraging other people's experiences and leveraging their expertise is a great way to be weed-like, because weeds seek those advantages.
Well, yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head here, because as entrepreneurs, we have to do everything. We have to understand everything in our business. We built the thing from the ground up. So you got to know everything. And then there's a tendency to just do it all. And so if you do that, and in fact, if you find that you're somehow in the deliverable stream of your business, if you're helping to deliver the mattresses, I hope not, but if you're somehow tied to the production, or you're in the middle of the production stream of your business, then you're probably in the way of scaling it. Again, we're talking about very different kinds of businesses here. But if we look at my agency business for a moment, I'm the chief creative officer for my agency, and so. Or I shouldn't even say that. I'm just the creative director of my agency, but that means that I'm involved in all of the creative, and that is a problem. I need to get out of that. And so, having read, or I should say, written the book and then read it over and over for editing, I'm saying, oh my God, I'm making a lot of mistakes here. And one of those is I'm toiling under one-to-one leverage. You don't scale anything that way. And so that has led me to productize a lot of what I do, a lot of what I've been creating, just sort of on a project-to-project basis. I'm productizing it. I'm moving it out to much larger sales channels. And as I mentioned before, I'm creating a lot of collaborations, and those are a lot of fun. Those are really cool. I'm just exploring it as I'm going right now, but we need to find a lot of ways to collaborate. And when we do that, your competitors aren't so much competitors anymore. You're helping each other. You're actually contributing to each other's businesses, which is a much better way to go than to do it all on your own, under one-to-one leverage, hoping to, I mean, that doesn't work during good times. So during tough times, it just makes sense to follow basically what the weeds are showing us.
Yeah, 100%. Leverage in other people's knowledge, other people's skills, other people's connections.
Yeah.
Boy, I've got a story, and I'm not going to tell it, but it's called the $1 Million Ice Cream Cone. And I said to one of my accounts, who led me to my biggest account that I ever had, I said, Scooter, when did you decide that you loved me? And he said, I decided that I loved you when you bought me ice cream. And he became involved with a very large account, and he brought me along. And it's a long story. I can't get into it, but I will tell you this. As a rep or a store owner, leverage every relationship. You don't know who knows who, and collaborate as much as you can. Become active within your community. You should do it to say thank you. You should do it because they're supporting you and you want to support them. But as a business strategy, it is a sound one, and it is one that we all need to be involved with. And just one quick thing, and I have some more questions for you, Stu. You have been leery as a mattress store owner or furniture store owner to get involved with other businesses, and you need to now get a piece of blank paper out, write down all the businesses within 10 miles of you, and ask yourself, do we share an audience? Do we share any demographics? What do we share? And could we put a coupon in each other's stores to drive traffic to each other's store for practically free? That's something that we should be doing. So I am amazed about a few things about this book, but the one thing that really that really got me going was when you were talking about the amount of seeds. I never understood. I never studied this. I mean, I took biology, but I mean, the whole thing escaped me. When you have marketing like a weed that spreads, you want to talk about an unfair advantage. That's an unfair advantage, and that's something that you talk about in your book. And I just thought, man, is that good?
Yeah, when you see what weeds do, and again, the familiar example is the dandelion, and they pop out. They live 5 to 10 years, and they pop out an average of 15,000 seeds per plant. But of course, there's hundreds of them out there, which is so that's a heck of a multiplier. And those seeds are highly mobile, and they, as I mentioned before, they probe every possible opportunity to take root. That's why they take root. Oh my God, I've had them take root in our gutter, our roof gutter, and on the tops of walls, all over the place. But they probe every possible opportunity to take root. So I think the analogy here is seeds, and there's seed strategy and seed pod strategy. There's 8 levels of weed strategy within the book. So seed strategy, though, seeds are analogous to anything that causes people to become aware of us and form the intent to transact with us in some way. And so we want to spread a lot of seeds. We want those seeds to be mobile. I think the analogy that's analogous to stories and other elements that cause people to talk about us and spread the word about us, obviously in a positive way, but they spread the word about us, and people hear about us, and they can't wait to like, they've got to dive in. They've got to find out, how can I do business with you? Or how can I find out more? I find this really interesting. And so I'm sure there are a lot of people in the audience who are doing very, very interesting things with mattresses that I don't that we wouldn't expect, or they have great backstories. I don't know how they got started. Maybe even more importantly, what are they doing in their communities that are causing people just to improve people's lives, perhaps. But there've got to be some great stories out there, and those stories are a great example of a form of seed that will be highly mobile and be passed along and cause people to create that impression, or I should say, cause people to form that intention to do something with you, to transact with you in some way.
Yeah. One of the most interesting chapters I thought was your segmentation strategy. I'm like, he's talking about the mattress industry here, because you can't, as a mattress retailer, you can't go after all of it. There's not enough slots in your store. So are you going after the middle? You going after the promotional? Or are you going after the top? Where are you going? How does someone get a signed copy of the new book? They ask a really good question, Steve, that makes me and Stu go, that's a good question. And
I better sign a book for him.
I'll pay for the book if my friend Stu will be so kind as
I'm happy to sign. Yeah, absolutely. Good question, Steve.
So anybody that wants a signed copy, jump in with a good question, and you might just get a signed copy of the book. Guy, supreme confidence and wisdom in our conversation tonight. Excellent. Supreme confidence and wisdom in our conversation tonight. Excellent. Is there something else that goes with that, Guy? I love this show. We love you too. We love you too. So we were talking about segmentation strategy.
Yeah.
And, weeds are able to segment, and we as business owners should be segmenting. And sometimes where we thought our business was going to go, it ends up going in a different place because we listen to what our customers want, and we end up taking it to another place, a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left, depending on what our customers are saying to us and what they're asking for. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, segmentation. Let's talk about what it is first of all. When you grab a weed, some weeds, if you grab them and you're trying to pull them out, you'll notice that you get a handful of, let's say, some leaves, but the whole thing, like, you're not going to get the weed out that way, or it'll break off at the root. But they're designed to break off in segments so that it mitigates risk and damage. So that's what I was talking about. How can we do that in our businesses when we're disrupted? I mean, weeds are the great disruptors, one of the great forces of disruption in nature. But sometimes they deal with, they deal with disruption. They deal with being disrupted all the time. And so segmentation strategies about those defensive strategies that help the weeds in nature, but us in business to mitigate damage and perhaps to help us pivot in a way. And what I'm curious about, Pete, is we just we're heading into a recession, but we just came out of a pandemic, I guess. Maybe we're not even done with it. But yeah. But I'm curious, how did the pandemic affect the mattress industry, and what were people doing in the mattress industry to pivot and counteract that? How did the ones, I should say, how did the ones who thrived during the pandemic, what did they do?
Wow, a lot of great questions there. So overall, just broad strokes, and anybody can jump in here, it was great for our industry. And I say that it could have been better, but what actually happened is we got overwhelmed, and I guess what happened is people got stuck in their homes. They realized that they needed a new mattress, and as soon as they were able to go out and get a new mattress, they did. And what we ended up with was supply problems, huge supply problems.
Wow, interesting.
We could not make enough springs. We could not buy enough foam. We could not get enough fabric or non-wovens to make as many mattresses. If I could have shipped half of what I wrote, I would have been overjoyed, and I was. So I thought it was going to be the worst of times, and it was the best of times for our industry specifically. That led, there were some unfortunate things that happened about the same time. There was a chemical plant that got frozen in Texas and Louisiana, and one of the chemicals that's used to make foam was not abundant, and it became a real Achilles heel just prior to and during that time. So now basically what you're finding is deliveries and the supply interruptions are much less. They're pretty close to being all the way back to normal. Normal for us as an industry was 1 week delivery, and most of us are at 1 and 2 week deliveries right now. But now business has slowed down quite a bit. Most of the retailers are not happy with the amount of traffic they're getting. A few of the really good ones are. And to your second or third question, what were the lessons, and who did really well? I guess the lesson was that you can't be married to your old way of doing business, just having your door open. A lot of our dealers adapted a strategy of working by appointment, and they worked by appointment. Only one customer was allowed in the store at a time to try to, I think that as a general rule, all of my retailers were reaching out to the public and letting them know, listen, we have masks here. If you don't have a mask, we have hand sanitizer, and we're cleaning our stores on a regular basis. We're doing everything we can to provide you a safe environment. And the other thing that the successful retailers did better than the average retailers is they managed the customer's expectations. And they basically got really good at saying, delivery times are unpredictable now. We used to be able to tell you it's going to come in a week, but it whatever I tell you could be wrong. I'm going to say 4 to 6 weeks. It could be 8 weeks. Just try to be as patient as you can. It's unpredictable times, as you well know. And they started to point to their mask. Like, we're all in this thing together. And I think that's what the better retailers did that came out of it with the most business that they could have gotten. And more importantly, they kind of stood up in their community and did not give back any of their market share to other retailers, because that's what can happen with a big disruption like a pandemic. If you just completely panic and you shutter your doors completely and don't allow and basically send your customers to another retailer. If that other retailer treats them well, now you've got a really big problem, because now you have to try to win them back from that other retailer. So there was a real fine line between showing sensitivity towards people, and everybody had a different attitude, right, Stu? Everybody had a different attitude towards it, and you had to be mindful of all customers and all of those different people that had different viewpoints on it, and to let them know that they're all welcome, and we're going to protect all of you, and we're going to provide the best service that we can for you while keeping you safe. And I think that's what happened. I wish one of my retailers would jump in here and save me, because I'm saying the same thing 10 times.
One thing that I think would be really interesting, because I don't know it, is what generally prompts people to say, I need a new mattress right now.
I can tell you,
like, maybe in the next few years I'll get one.
I can tell you right now. So anybody that's been listening to the show, and you don't know this, number one, shame on you, because you should know this by now. But number two, this was worth the price of admission. So the levers that make purchases happen are a few things. Sadly, divorces. They don't want anything to do with the old mattress because their ex slept on it. I want a new mattress. Vacations. Those of us who are fortunate enough to take vacations every year, we're blessed. A lot of people don't take vacations every year. And when they finally take a vacation away and they go to a hotel with a good mattress and they come back to the old mattress, they've noticed that gradually over years and years and years, their mattress has lost support and comfort. And now they're not happy with it. So vacations, divorces, and moving.
That was one of the ones I was wondering about, because I'm wondering, if I was, so I'm not in the mattress, obviously I'm not in the mattress business. I'd be starting from square one if I said, I'm going to go into the mattress business right now. But I think one of the things I'd be curious about is what kind of, I mentioned collaboration. I'm still a total weed though, right? So one of the collaborations, or one of the sources of collaborations I think I would seek out are with real estate agents. So when someone moves in, when they sell a house, man, they ought to be doing something almost, maybe even as a housewarming. I don't know that they would buy a mattress for them, but maybe here's a coupon. I want to, if you want to get a new bed, new mattress, I want to send you someone because you just got a new house. This is the perfect time to get a new bed to sleep in. And so I would think that they'd be great sources for collaborations. And does that make sense at all? I wonder if that's happening now. It's probably like a big duh. Of course we do that. I don't know, but I would certainly be looking for that.
I would tell you that some enterprising mattress retailers do collaborations with real estate agents, but many of them don't. Some of the bigger guys who are on the regular lookout for new stores receive great intel. You talk about competitive intel, the real estate, I'm talking about commercial real estate agents now. Slight twist off of what you're saying. Commercial real estate agents usually know what's happening for the next year to 2 years in a market, and they're looking for other. So the early warning sign of a major competitor coming in, that bell is going to be sounded by a commercial real estate agent. And if you don't have relationships with commercial real estate agents, you really should, just so you know what competitors are doing before they do it. So,
well, you might also get introductions that way. I mean, they sell hotels.
Oh yeah,
right. They sell buildings with beds in them, and so even just the right introductions could be a big sale.
Yeah.
Another question I have is, sorry, I know this is your show. You should be asking all, but I'm just curious. There's a trick that car dealerships use. They use geofencing to run ads to people who've just they draw a little geofence around their competitors' shops or stores, whatever you want to call them, the dealerships. And when someone walks in there, they've triggered the geofence, and they start running ads to them. So, does that make sense? So let's say you go into a car dealership, and then all of a sudden, But you walked out, maybe you didn't buy the car then. So then you start getting ads from other, I would say, really smart car dealerships who are saying, hey, I don't know what they'd be saying. I don't know what their ads would say, but basically, come on down to our shop. If you're shopping for a car, come on down to our shop. So I wonder if that holds any water. I wonder if anybody in the mattress business is using geofencing to, well, I don't know. It is rather weed-like and aggressive, but
it's very aggressive and it's very weed-like, and it is used sparingly in our industry. Not a lot of guys do it. And then, of course, if you're using Google, you should be going after that demographic because you can target your demographic before you have to geofence them, right? So,
Well, there's that. Yeah, but it's also a trigger event,
oh yeah, it
and
is.
that would be an unfair advantage, actually.
Yep, yep,
Think about
yep.
that. That'd be amazing.
I like that. I like that. And yes,
So you,
some guys do it, but not very many. Less than 10% actually, Stu.
yeah. Well, you did ask a while ago. You asked about segmentation, and I think one of the industries that's really interesting is the restaurant industry. So they, usually in recessions, um, people may not go out as often, but they still eat. They eat at three meals a day as long as they can afford to do it, and they'll go out and they'll spend money on food. And so restaurants typically don't seem. I mean, they go down a little bit, but they don't go out. It's usually one of those industries that's thought of as perhaps a little bit recession proof, like gyms. And both of those industries got clobbered during the recession, or during the pandemic. People didn't want to go into a crowded gym and work out either. It was unhealthy to do that suddenly. And so, but in the restaurant industry, we saw a lot of restaurants just go out of business, but we saw some that, well, they already had maintained a list of an email list of all of their customers, so they were able to correspond with them very quickly. And when people stopped coming to restaurants to eat in a dining room, they would shift to takeout or other kinds of models, but they'd shift, and they were able to take their customers along with them, and some of those restaurants really thrived. And so that was certainly a segmentation strategy. And those are the kinds of strategies that we want to, of course, set up in our own businesses. And I would think in the mattress business, I don't know how often people buy mattresses. I mean, I would think that consumers don't buy them very often. And so, I don't know, Pete, help me out. Does it make sense to also concentrate on commercial accounts? Or is that a valid shift, for example, during a recession?
Boy, that's a good question. So the buy-in cycle, we like to say it should be 7 to 8 years, but it's not. I used to say it's 15 years. If I was a betting man, and I'm not, I would bet you it's 10 to 12 years. That's the real mattress cycle. The problem with retailers going after hotel business is they're in competition with the same manufacturers that they buy from. Most
Hmm.
most manufacturers have an arm that go either a rep or a team of reps that go after contracted commercial business. So that's but it's not a reach. It's so there are a lot of different. Listen, years and years ago, one of my customers came to me with an idea, and he asked me, "Do you think it's going to work?" And I said, "It'll either be really big or it'll be a flop." Well, it was really big, and what it was fundraising with mattresses in schools. And what happened is his daughter came and said, "Will you buy this, chocolate bar for $2 that should be 50 cents?" And he's like, "Sure." And then he's thinking to himself, well, how many chocolate bars do they have to sell? If they just sold one mattress, they'd be money ahead. So he came up with this idea based on chocolate bars to sell mattresses. And he actually ended up selling that business years later. And now I believe that he's retired, and he came up with something completely different that was actually, you want to talk about disruptive. None of the retailers could figure out what he was doing. He's bringing mattresses into a gymnasium for an afternoon or for 2 afternoons on a weekend, selling the mattresses and giving money back to the band or to football team or to whatever sports team they were sponsoring. So that was one of those disruptive moments in our industry.
Yeah. Well, that is, I love that story. Of course, I've never heard that story. I love that story, and that's a great example of. I don't know that he was doing it during a recession. I don't know what the timing was, but what a great segmentation strategy to bring mattresses into fundraising. I mean, who would ever even think of that, right? And so that became his unfair advantage. That's exactly what I'm talking about here.
Yep.
Well, that's like what I'm talking about with the weed strategy anyway. He was being a total weed.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Well, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Because if we just do everything that we've always done, or even worse, if you then start pulling back on marketing, and every entrepreneur, every business owner seems to do that. Most do, and they leave themselves wide open to takeovers by others who are just they're going to be the disruptors and the new disruptors in the market and take over market share during these times of recession. The thing about recessions is that we know that there's some people who always thrive or often thrive during recessions. Certainly, we know that there are people who thrive during recessions, and I'm just left with that impression of weeds that they thrive. They absolutely thrive in disrupted ground. And I think that it's possible not only to thrive during recessions, but if you're able to do that, then think about all of the just the ways that you can get ahead in your marketplace, because you're buying things at a discount, because everything, the property, if we're buying property is a lot less expensive. Everything's less expensive because everyone's having a hard time selling whatever they're selling. So if you're able to thrive during a recession, man, what a huge advantage. That doesn't just pay out during the recession, but pays out just forever, really, because you've thrived during a recession. You notched up or you ratcheted up your position during a recession, and now when times get better, then you're in this new position. You're in this new dominant position, and so I just think it makes a lot of sense to do things like what you just described. That just tying into I think that's something you should share a lot more with your audience, how that mattress seller did that, what the model was, because that's exactly the kind of stuff you need to start applying during recessions. Oh, and there's one of my cartoons.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit. So one of the things, you are a Wall Street, you work for the Wall Street Journal as a cartoonist. And so that provides you a weed-like advantage in and of itself. But what you do with your cartoons and how you use them in business really becomes super unfair.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah. So, and I know this is just going to be absolutely confusing for the audience. Like, wait a minute, we were talking about weeds and growth, cartooning? No, but it all sort of ties in because I use cartoons in marketing, and I use them because their readership surveys have been showing forever that they're almost always the best read and remembered parts of magazines and newspapers. They get a lot of attention, and when you then personalize them and target them properly. Well, I know from my test experience, I've got a lot of it, that you can set all kinds of records for response. So you might wonder, well, where on earth is all this coming from? And so when I graduated college, I graduated with a marketing degree, but I was also a cartoonist. I was also getting published as a cartoonist in the LA papers. And I was a member of the Cartoonist Guild, and they sent an article from Folio magazine talking about those readership surveys and how cartoons are almost always the best read and remembered parts of whatever they're in. And I thought, I've got to combine them. And I wanted to create direct mail for the big magazine publishers. That was my goal. I wanted to create for Time Inc. and Condé Nast and the Wall Street Journal and Forbes and so on. And so I tested it, and I got two initial campaigns for Rolling Stone and Bon Appetit. So I created mailings for them. I used a personalized cartoon on the outer envelope, and that sort of drew them all the way through. And they We're
There you
seeing
go.
some of them
Right
now,
there.
but those things ended up breaking all kinds of records in their campaigns. So in other words, we'd send something like that out. People just, they loved them, and they responded to them, and that's what, oh, it's so distracting to see them too. But but it created a huge unfair advantage, and I realized early on that I was able to create an unfair advantage for my marketing clients by using the cartoons. So you can see how this works. I mean, cartoons, they're using cartoons in the proper way, but using mattresses during, or I mean, in fundraising activities also is an unfair advantage. They can come from anywhere, and so certainly I was using the cartoons that way. I ended up with all of the big magazine publishers as clients, and I ended up creating a lot of record-breaking campaigns for them. So that left me with this unmatched body of test history as well. I mean, there's nobody in the world who has more test experience with using personalized cartoons in marketing campaigns than me because of that, because I was the beneficiary of all those campaigns for all those big direct marketers. Yeah, cartoons. I mean, when I send someone a cartoon and it's about them, I get through, and that's an unfair advantage. So there are lots of them.
According to the weeds, the quickest way to scale is to form alliances.
Yeah.
And so as we're getting to the end of our show, if somebody reads this book, How to Grow Their Business Like a Weed, and they go, man, I'm all in. I am all in. I want to make this thing happen. What's their next step? If they want to go faster and they want to tap into your knowledge base and what you're doing around this, how do they go faster? Can you help them go faster?
I mean, I think probably the quickest way to do it, but I'm not here to sell. I'm just here to contribute. But to answer your question, probably the quickest way to do that would be for us to sit down and work together in a consulting engagement and figure out what it is that we can do to come up with these unfair advantages. And then by having those unfair advantages, we end up, you could see that with my own business, I have these really unique things about my business. And so that it makes it much easier for me to create these collaborations as well. But I would be working with you to figure out what your unfair advantages are, what kind of unfair advantages you can cultivate, and then all kinds of get really busy with all kinds of collaborations and start broadening the footprint of your business that way. And that's where we would go. That's the sort of the complicated answer. The simple answer is get the book and read through it. And I think it'll prompt a lot of ideas.
So get the book and then go to StuHeinecke.com and get in touch with Stu, because you're going to need to grow your business like a weed in the next few months. And it's a complete strategy for unstoppable growth in less than ideal conditions. I think that's the key to weeds. They don't require perfect conditions. They thrive in imperfect conditions.
They thrive no matter what. And I would say, so it's not just during recessions. It's just that we're heading into a recession, and my gosh, the realization that they thrive in disrupted ground is not lost. But they do it no matter whatever is happening out there. It's just they just deal with it. So we're heading into some tough times. I guess. I hope not. Really, for everyone's sake, I hope not. But that's what the signals say. And so during those times, you want to be ready for that. And I think Weed Strategy helps us do that in a big way.
Stu, thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. And one of the things that I found the most enlightening about this whole show that we did was your natural curiosity about other businesses. I think that's a special quality that helps you to mentor businesses when you're truly curious, like you really want to know. And I think that's special. And we don't see that every day with all of our guests. So thank you very much for being here. And thank you for being curious about how to help other businesses and what you can do to help them. And let's get together soon. And I have a sneaking suspicion I'm going to be calling you with a few books that we need to sign for a couple of our guys that were in here. So thank you so much, Stu.
Oh, you're welcome. And you should also have a sneaking suspicion that I might say, Pete, let's figure out how we can collaborate, because I'm sure we can.
Absolutely. You bet. Thanks, Stu.